but he was very like micromanagey, like sitting behind you all the time when you're trying to like work on stuff and just making sure you're doing it right. I can tell you what I enjoy the least is the parking.
Hi everyone, this is Sang from Husky. I'm a PhD student at the University of Connecticut. Every year, tons of students apply to the PhD program in the US, but many of them don't really know what research environment here is actually like. So today, I'll be talking to a fellow PhD student in Biomedical Engineering to ask him about his research, the working environment here at UConn, and what daily life as a PhD student looks like. So if you are planning to apply to the PhD program in the US, I hope this video is going to give you an honest and helpful perspective, and maybe a little bit inspiration for your own journey. So let's get started. Hi Max,
Hi.
Thank you for joining me today. So first of all, could you introduce yourself, your name, where you're from, and what is your major?
Sure, so my name is Max. I grew up in Connecticut. I actually went to undergrad here at UConn as well, and now I'm doing my PhD here in the Biomedical Engineering department.
Great. So now can you tell us a little bit about your research and what are you working on right now?
Sure, so my main research focuses around the use of, it's called a Janus-based nanomatrix. It's just a bunch of fancy words for nanotubes mixed with protein that we use to regenerate cartilage tissue. So the matrix brings cells in, the cells then produce the tissue, and then we can get localized cartilage regeneration.
Sounds great. So what made you decide to pursue a PhD at the beginning?
So it was, I thought as I was going through my undergrad, I didn't really know what I wanted to do until kind of towards the end, but I saw more and more. I did undergrad research and I really liked it. I liked the idea of just trying to answer questions and problem solving, and I didn't really like a whole lot of the industry jobs that were out there for bachelor's level people. So I decided to stick with school and go into the PhD program for another 5 years, but I think it'll be worth it.
So I think a lot of people are curious about what the day-to-day like as a PhD student. So can you tell what is the typical day as a PhD student like? On the average, like how many hours do you work a week?
So that is honestly really tough, just because the main project I'm on is the space project. So we do a lot of work with NASA, Axiom Space, different private space companies where we make the nanomatrix in space. So there are weeks where it's mostly just kind of like planning and logistics where it's not as intensive. Maybe I'll get here in the morning at like 9 and then leave by noon or something like that, and then just do some work at home. Which is nice because you can have that flexibility sometimes. Other times I'm here the whole day and it's crazy. Like when we did the space stuff, I think I woke up at like 3 a.m. and then I didn't stop work until like 10 p.m.
Oh, that's
like
long.
That. So yeah, it gets but that's like really rare, right?
Okay,
so most of the time it is kind of more manageable, especially at least with my research. It's nice to have the hybrid stuff. Like I can come in, do my experiments in the morning, go home, do all the work on my computer, and kind of have a good balance that way.
Okay, sounds good. So how about the lab meetings? How often is your lab meeting, and what usually happens during the lab meetings?
So again, I can't speak for everyone. I know this is what we do. I don't know if this is normal, but we do lab meetings every week. And they're around like an hour to hour and a half long. It'll be either a research update, so someone will present what they've been doing to the whole lab. It's usually really collaborative. It's not competitive by any means. Everyone's just kind of listening, and it's a great time to ask questions too. Like say if you are struggling with a certain assay or something that you've been working on, it's really nice to just be able to talk to other people who have done it before or who might have good suggestions. We'll also do literature reviews every now and then. It used to be monthly, but we've been kind of slacking on that recently. And then with my PI, I do one-on-one meetings every 2 weeks, which is nice. I just kind of keep him updated on what I'm doing. He gives new suggestions, and then we keep going from there.
Great. So how would you describe the academic environment in your lab? And do you get to collaborate with all the labs or other universities? Because I heard that you collaborate with NASA, right?
Yeah, we do a lot of collaboration. So I think BME is special too because it's such an interdisciplinary field that there's so many different things you can be doing and so many different people you can work with. So I work personally with like NASA, Axiom Space, There's a few biotech companies like Advanced Solutions Life Sciences, different labs, especially there's a lot of crossover between UConn and UConn Health. So for those of you who don't know, UConn Health is the kind of medical school, and there's some BME students there as well, but they're more kind of translational research focused. So it's a cool blend of, we have the kind of like earlier stage ideas and we can still bring it to animal models, but then we can also work with them for different, applications that we wouldn't be able to get here at UConn stores.
I see. So what about the collaboration with NASA? Because that sounds fantastic. So can you tell us more about that project and what is your role in that project?
So that's what actually drew me the most to do my PhD here at UConn. I had a few different interviews. One was with RPI that also just happened to be kind of astrobiology based. What I like about this one is it's more about in-space manufacturing and using space to better medicine here on Earth. The nanomatrix that I was talking about earlier forms together through self-assembly at room temperature in water. And as you can imagine, if we have a bunch of little puzzle pieces coming together in water, as they start to get larger and larger and more dense, they're going to start to sink to the bottom of whatever tube or vial that we make them in. So the idea is when we make them in space, these puzzle pieces can keep fitting together to make larger and larger structures. And those structures are going to be more cohesive for cell binding, better cell signaling, and that leads to better cartilage regeneration when we actually apply them here on Earth.
Sounds great. So in your lab, have you had any opportunity to attend any conferences or like present your work?
Yeah, so I go to conferences around maybe like once or twice a year.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's been nice, like because the space project is like there are super busy times. Sometimes like I'll get into the conference and I'll just like give someone else my presentation. They can go present it. But that's been nice. I'd say like once a year is kind of the benchmark for our lab of like what they want people to do for them most. Also touching on my role, I forgot to answer that part of the last question, but so I started off working just under someone else who was kind of the team lead for the project in the really early stages. She ended up graduating, so then that kind of fell to me as the next person in line. So now I manage a team of probably 10 students, like including undergrads and master's students, PhD students, and I'm the lead for the science team, which is just a cool name for like the student researchers, right? But yeah.
Okay, so another big question students are usually curious about is the funding. Mm-hmm. So as a PhD student, do you have to pay for your tuition fee or is it covered?
So the tuition fee is covered. There are graduate student fees, which is pretty common across most universities. There's some level of student fees. Depending on the type of grants you have, I think that can change. But for the most part, everything is pretty standardized for the amount of money you get, things like that. There are different options too. I was on a TA ship, as you know, for the first year. Then second year, I started to do more RA ship. And then more recently, I have a NIH fellowship that I'm on through like the T32 program. So there's a bunch of different funding resources. Most people will be able to fund you with an RA. Eventually, you'll probably have to start with a TA, but everyone does their TA ship, and it turns out fine. But
every month you get the stipend, right?
Yeah.
So is it enough for you to live on here?
I mean, it's enough to survive for sure. It is a little tough. You'll definitely have to have. I'm lucky. My girlfriend and I split like rent and stuff like that, so that's nice. But you'll definitely have to find a roommate. You're not going to get rich off of it by any means, but it is nice. It's way better than having to pay for school, for sure. And there's also other opportunities to, like tutoring, stuff like that you can do outside of school and just kind of make a little bit more money on the side. But
yeah, but because you are American, so you can do, the other jobs.
Yeah.
If for the international students,
that is true. That is true. I would say tutoring is probably your best bet then.
Okay. So in the U.S., usually there is a qualifying exam for the PhD student before becoming a PhD candidate, right? And I learned that different departments have different formats of the qualifying exam. So can you tell us how that works in your department?
Sure. So it's a little bit confusing for our department specifically. We do things a little bit differently. We have our qualifying exam, which is the second summer. So the summer after your second year, you'll take your qualifying exam. And it's a little bit different. Like I was saying, you're not allowed to pick a field of research or a project that you've done before or have a whole lot of experience with. It can't be related to your dissertation or anything like that. You have to basically write a kind of like a draft R01 proposal and then give a presentation on it to a few people who are faculty in that area of expertise generally. So I do cartilage research for the most part. In my qualifying exam, I chose a project investigating regenerative methods for aged macular degeneration. I can never say that right, but I got it right this time. So yeah, it's a very different topic from what I do normally, but you go through, write your proposal, present it. Most of the time you'll pass or pass with revisions, and then if you keep struggling, people will, you're not gonna get kicked out of the program. Like there are a lot of safeguards for it. But yeah, so after qualifying exam, you have a few more years until your general exam, which is when you're pretty much ready for your dissertation defense. You just have a few more things that you want to focus on. So you present your outline to everyone on your committee. They then give you a thumbs up or thumbs down, tell you what you might have to change, something like that. And then you have, I believe, a minimum of 9 months you have to wait from that date to when you can actually defend your dissertation.
So if someone fails the qualifying exam, do they have another chance?
So there are a lot of second chances with it. From my understanding, if you fail to the point where you're getting removed from the program, you might be trying to fail at that point. How it works is you'll present it the first time. Most of the cases, like probably 8, 9 times out of 10, you'll pass, but they'll say, hey, just change this thing and resubmit the proposal, or we want you to fix like this slide or this aim or something was not really too clear.
That's the conditional pass, right?
Exactly, conditional pass, yeah. That's the right way to say it. So yeah, you'll get that. Sometimes if you're lucky, you'll get the full pass where you don't have to change anything. And other times you'll basically, I haven't really heard of anyone getting a full failure before. You'll most likely get the conditional pass, or they'll fail you and then it's kind of like a conditional failure where if you have to change a lot of stuff, you'll just have to present again and give the paper again. And you can kind of do that for a few more times and then you should be fine.
Yeah. So let's go back a little bit. Mm-hmm. So you said that you have done the research before joining the PhD program, right? Mm-hmm. So do you think it is important for a PhD student to have the research experience beforehand?
I think it's really, really important, just for applications especially. I know it's getting more and more competitive each year just for applications to PhD programs, so it's always good to have that experience. If you have any sort of publications, that's great too. I know when I'm mentoring undergrads, that's one big thing I kind of push is publications. Probably you might not get like a research publication, but at least like, review paper, something like that. And then if possible, just get as much experience as you can just to list stuff on your resume. And also just makes the transition to your own research so much easier too. If I came in without knowing anything, I'd probably finish my PhD like a year later, right? Because then you have to get in, learn all the skills, and then go from there. It also depends on the program too, because UConn Health, they do rotations for their first year anyway. So you probably don't need to have a whole lot of extensive experience there because you're going to be rotating into different labs every few months and then just gaining new skills from that. So it's a little bit different everywhere you go. But if you really want to especially if you want publications quick and you want like a good academic portfolio, I would say definitely get some sort of experience in undergrad if you can.
Yeah, correct. So speaking of the application, so what are the factors that you consider before applying to UConn or your lab?
It's been a while, so I gotta think about that. But I think the biggest thing is make sure that you're applying to a very research-heavy university, so like an R1 university, which UConn is. You just want to make sure that the university is like aimed in its main mission towards research. You don't want to go to one that might have a good name but doesn't have a lot of funding or doesn't have a lot of resources. Like UConn's really nice. We're building like a new building every year for research.
That's true.
Built this one like when I was here in undergrad. We built the next one when I was here for my like first few years of PhD. So There's a lot of money being invested into it, especially now it's tough with a lot of research cuts. So if you go to, other universities that aren't in R1 university, research might be one of the first things that they kind of lose money on and just kind of, throw to the wayside and just to focus on their own development. So that's important. And then the biggest thing overall for me is the lab. You have to keep in mind, it's not like you're doing an undergrad degree, you're not applying to the school, you're applying to the lab specifically. So definitely reach out to the professors and ask them. They'll offer visits too if they want to bring you in, which was really cool. Like I did a visit in UMass when I was applying, and that was really nice. Like they got me a hotel and I got to go up there.
Oh, that's
it was
really
cool.
nice.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Generous.
Yeah, and it was like we just checked out the campus, got to eat at like the dining halls and stuff, and just see the lab. If you get to do that, definitely don't just talk to the PI, talk to the lab students. They gave me some good advice too. They were saying basically in the nicest way that they could say that, I'm not gonna say the guy's name, but he was very like micromanagey, like sitting behind you all the time when you're trying to like work on stuff and just making sure you're doing it right. And that's just not my style of, learning and research. So that's one of the reasons I applied to my lab. Is my professor is not too hands-off, but he lets you have a lot more independence and kind of freedom with your decision making.
Right. So the PhD life is definitely not easy, right? No. So what has been the biggest challenge so far in your journey?
The biggest challenges, I think one thing is when you're early on, a lot of people come in and they think that they're gonna just cruise through the whole thing and they're gonna work so hard and they're gonna just get done with it in like 3 or 4 years, and then you get a year into it and you get burnt out because you've been going too hard. So the most important thing is finding your own time management skills and then also your own pace. A lot of people work at different paces. Some people will be a constant like steady pace where they're not working too hard, but they're able to maintain it for a long time. Other people will do a lot of work in like a week and then the next week kind of like bring it down, like relax, just do like data analysis, writing, and then kind of flip-flop like that. So just finding out what works for you. I'd say TAing was really hard for reasons that but another aspect of TAing is it does take a lot of time away from your research. Like I was a 20-hour TA, so I had to work for my TA professor like 20 hours a week. So obviously that's like half of the traditional work week that I can't spend on research, which was tough. Like I wasn't getting a whole lot of results. It was kind of stalling my own progression, but it's just some stuff that you have to kind of suffer through and then, get back on your feet. Just do the best you can. And then once you're on the RA ship, that's when you can really dedicate more time to it. Another thing too, the money situation, just because it is Connecticut, it's an expensive state. So things can get a little stressful sometimes, especially earlier on, if you're not making as much. So I'd say definitely get good with saving your money. Be good with not spending, like, I budget every cent that I spend just to make sure I'm not going over, right? But that's a big thing too, is just trying to find out like your financial security as well as you go through it.
Right. So how do you usually keep yourself like motivated or like manage the stress?
Mm-hmm. So I try to keep things as low stress as possible. I know that's easier said than done, but just kind of taking things week by week, looking at, what can I do this week? Realistically, I'm not gonna, spend 100 hours in lab every week, but like, what can I do realistically this week? How is it progressing my projects? Every Sunday night or like Monday morning, I'll usually plan out the whole week in terms of like what the projects are, what I have to do by what date. I'll look at like monthly, like, oh, okay, I have this big presentation this day, so I have to make sure I can have everything set up for that. I think the biggest thing is just planning and organizing, and it makes it so much less stressful than. And I know it's kind of intimidating because it seems like it's going to take up so much time and you're like, oh, I just want to go in and do my research and whatever, but it makes it so much less stressful than going in and being like, oh, I have to like run this whole assay today and all this stuff. And a big thing too is finding outside hobbies. You can't invest your happiness into the lab. Because it happens. Like I did it when I was, first or second year, where there were weeks it was great because all my stuff was working, and then there were other weeks where something would break, or the experiment I was doing for the 5th time still wasn't working, and it was bad, right? So definitely having some sort of outside interest. Like I really like having something physical. Like I do boxing and jiu-jitsu, and that has helped a lot really good for stress management of just kind of keeping everything calm. Working out is good. Other hobbies, like creative hobbies, are nice, like fishing, stuff like that. Not really creative, but other outdoor stuff. Just things to keep your mind busy outside of lab, so that way you're not totally dedicated to that one thing.
So do you think what are the skills that you gain during your PhD?
Definitely staying calm under pressure, I think, is a big one, especially with the research environment now of how grants are being less and less like secure, and there's a lot of threatening in different agencies that they're going to take stuff away. So calm under pressure. Time management is a huge one. I know that's kind of, everyone thinks that they're good at time management until it's like something crazy happens and you have to get actually good at time management. There's a myriad of different lab skills you'll learn that you can use in a variety of different ways. And I think the biggest thing is just having like an analytical mind too. So knowing, what problems you want to solve, like thinking things through a lot more, so that way you're not wasting time. Like halfway through a project, you realize, oh, okay, I completely forgot this one step or something like that. So I'd say those are the big ones.
Right. Mm-hmm. So what do you enjoy the most about working in your lab or like working at UConn?
So I can tell you what I enjoy the least is the parking.
That's true. This morning I came here and it's hot.
It's crazy because of the moving. Yeah, like I park up there normally behind the building, but so the parking sucks. Other than that, the campus is really nice. It's really nice, especially in the summer when none of the undergrads are here. You can just kind of walk around and it's nice and calm. The environment at UConn is really, really nice. I've had family who have done not like degrees past undergrad, but even in undergrad, they did, some schooling at like higher tier universities, like Ivy Leagues, and they dropped out because it was too competitive.
Right.
Like it was like an entry level like bio lab, and they left to go to the bathroom and they came back and other students had like broken all their stuff because they didn't want them to pass, so then they could be like graded higher. So nothing like that, especially with the PhD. Everyone's on the same team. People, like, we have equipment that we let other labs use. We use equipment from other labs. Everyone just wants to kind of work together and see each other succeed, because it is like, there's kind of like a camaraderie between the PhD students, because everyone's in the same boat for the most part of what they have to do. Right. So I think the environment is great. I think the camaraderie between students is great. And again, because we're R1, funding is usually relatively secure. There's a lot of buildings and a lot of different equipment that we have that other labs or other schools don't have. So that's been really nice too.
Great. So how your social life? Have you make any like friends in the departments or across the departments?
Yeah, and I've had friends who stay and do degrees too from undergrad, which was nice. I met people like you through TAing, through other labs. So it is pretty nice. I think it is hard a little bit in the beginning to transfer it from like a friend at like when you're actually working to like a friend outside of work, but it happens, and I think everyone's again generally pretty friendly and nice, and everyone gets along pretty well, so that's good.
So looking ahead, so what are your goals after completing your PhD?
So I am thinking of industry. I realized while TAing that I'm probably not too interested in teaching that much. I'm looking a little bit, there's a few different avenues I was thinking of. One is like biodefense, so kind of like the CDC, like stuff like that would be an example. Other ones are just like process development or R&D at different industries, industry companies. But yeah, so just general industry kind of positions.
So what advice would you give to someone who is considering applying to UConn to the graduate school in UConn or in general?
I would say definitely check what lab you want to get into first. I've had a lot of people I know or have heard about who have applied to a lab just because they thought it looked nice on the website, and they get in and the professor has a like working structure that doesn't work at all with the student, right? Like kind of overbearing or asking too much of the student, and that has stopped a lot of people and really delayed their graduation too. Like people will jump around between labs for a few years and you kind of have to start over each time you do that. So know your professor, meet them in person if you can. If you can't, have like a Zoom call, ask to talk to different students in the lab too. When you can talk to them, try to talk to them without the professor there and then ask, like how is, like the work schedule, like what kind of does the professor expect? So that's a big thing. Get some experience in terms of research, even if it's like lower level, like just basic cell culture, just getting an idea of how to use a pipette. That's really, really big, just to prepare yourself if you can for the future in your lab. There is, and this is like, some people see it as like unethical, there is kind of like an escape route if you really have to, where after 2 years, typically you'll be, like once you pass the qualifying, you're seen as like a master's equivalent student. So at that point, you have pretty much all the requirements done for a master's degree and you've been getting paid to do it the whole time. So if you really have to, you can kind of jump ship at that point and leave with a master's degree that was paid for, which is nice. But you're probably going to have a really bad relationship with your PI, your lab mates, stuff like that if you do that. So that's like, it's a good like last resort option if you have to.
Right.
But again, just if you have any hesitations about it, I would suggest really thinking about it for a while and knowing that you want to do it. And like everyone has some sort of reservations, especially once you start doing it. But if you're not sure, especially like of the prospects after PhD, I know a lot of people who do the PhD because they just want a PhD. And then once they're getting ready to graduate, they go like, oh, like why I don't know what to do now, right?
Correct.
So you really have to know what you want to do after you graduate. And if that requires a PhD, like at least for me in biotech, having higher level positions in the biotech industry typically is like, you need a PhD for that. So because of that, that's why I went into it. But you don't want to go into it and then look for like, oh, well, what do I not want to do now? So.
Right. So okay, the last question. Mm-hmm. So if you had to describe your PhD experience in 3 words, what would they be?
Ooh, I would say busy is one of them. Busy's for sure one of them. I'll say managed because I figured out a way to manage like the stress and the time commitment and everything like that to a point now where it's relatively comfortable. It doesn't feel, too crazy. So let me see. Busy, managed, and I'm going to cheat and use 2 words, surprisingly fun on the last one. Where it is nice like being able to solve the problems and just you hear about research other labs are doing and it makes you really optimistic about the future, which is nice. You see like, oh wow, there's so much effort going into not even just the BME stuff, but like a lot of MSc people working on things for the environment or like mechanical engineering, building like better, whatever they do, mechanism, right? But yeah, so it's just across the board, it's really interesting and fun to kind of learn about everything. And just, you get a different understanding about the world too of like, I'll be like walking through a building and I'll look at like, oh, okay, they built this thing to hold this part up or whatever. Like it's a cool new way to look at everything in the world.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you so much for sharing your experience today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I wish you all the best for your research and the future career.
Thank you, and good luck to anyone watching, and hopefully they get into where they want to get into.
Okay, thank you so much.